What's up, y'all? Got a little bit of free time on my hands for once in my life. I just wolfed down 3 slices of pizza. Some delicious pizza. It was like chicken parm pizza, and it also had peppers on it and onions on it, and it was beautiful. I probably ate 3 slices in roughly a minute. So I'm full, I'm happy, I'm laying down, and I'm going to go ahead and run through a classic with you here. This is Joe Rogan and Steven Crowder debating marijuana policy, and it gets very heated. They clearly get angry at each other. It's kind of awkward in some ways, but it's also just golden content. I know most of you guys have heard of this. Let me see. How long ago was this? I'm not sure. Let's see. Does it say? No, it doesn't say when it was uploaded. Fuck. I thought it would. Didn't they used to have that feature? Didn't YouTube used to have that feature? Oh, maybe. Oh, well, here you go. Wait a second. 5 years ago was when this person commented, so that's probably when it was uploaded. Person says Joe gets angry and rude when drunk. Yeah, but also Steven Crowder is really annoying and wrong about almost everything. So let's do the math on that. 5 years ago. It's 2022 now. 2021, 2020, 2019, 2018, 2017. So that's 2017 that this happened. So Trump was already president. Jeez, time fucking flies, man. Anyway, let's get started. I'm actually going to put it on 1.25 times speed. So I don't think that's too big of an issue. You can slow it down if you want for it to be normal speed, but I honestly think anybody sort of has the ability to digest 1.25 times. So I just want to speed it up a touch, or else we'd be here for roughly about 17 hours. So let's get it started.
My bias. This is what I believe.
What's your bias?
Well, my bias, like you said, I'm right-wing. I'm conservative.
If you had to, if you go, God damn it, maybe I went too far down this road. If I could just relax one aspect of my dialogue, what would it be? Maybe it would be my pipe smoking.
Your pipe smoking. I probably wouldn't talk about the marijuana issue. I wouldn't care. Because here's the thing. I don't care about it.
One way or the other?
But my issue with it is when, and we saw this in Montreal, I talked about it, when people lie about it and they're dishonest with their voting constituency.
Like how so?
Well, saying, it's medicine for A, B, C, or D. It may be medicine for A, but not for B, C, or D.
What are the B, C's, and D's?
Well,
what are the things that's not medicine
an example.
for?
Well, you're asking me what I wouldn't talk about, and you're asking me to defend it. My point is, I don't really care about it.
But what are the B, C's, and D? What you said
it cures cancer.
Well, there has been shown...
It helps with cancer about as much as turmeric and ginger.
Those things all those anti-inflammatory things.
Yeah, I know, but it's not a prescription.
But CBD has been shown to have tremendous benefits for cancer and non-psychoactive.
Yeah, and certainly with seizures. I have zero problem with CBD being legalized. But my issue is...
So this is already interesting because Crowder started out being a little bit conciliatory there. When Joe asked him, what's one thing, basically one thing you regret? He's like, yeah, I wouldn't have really gone in on the weed issue because I just don't care about it now. So that's him trying to be like, Joe, I'm cool. I'm not going to go after your main thing, the issue that you care the most about. And Joe is vehemently pro-weed, so he still pounces, almost to be like, well, why did you ever go against it? So it's an interesting dynamic. I can't say I remembered this dynamic from the first time I watched it, which was probably 5 years ago.
Cannabis.
I feel the need to call people out in bullshit when they say, well, the reason it's not is because of big pharmaceutical companies. Go, hold on a second. There's 7 patents on chemical compounds for marijuana right now.
Right.
The people who stand to make the most out of marijuana legalization are pharmaceutical companies. That's why they make...
That's not true.
Well, it is. If you look at the big...
Well, even if that is true, they have other established medications that would be competition with marijuana, and they don't want the competition. And also, yeah, I'm not sure that is true. I'm not sure how much of it you can patent. And also, the reality is market share would probably be grabbed by other new companies that sell weed. And again, Big Pharma doesn't want anything getting in the way of their already established drugs. And of course, as we know, marijuana has so many uses for so many different illnesses that it would sort of potentially cut into their profit margin. But then you also have, look, the, the DEA. Every job in the DEA is tied to the drug war. So those people, want to keep their jobs. And it's just, the system's operating off of momentum right now. And I don't know if you guys remember the story that we covered years ago, but basically... Nixon's White House pretty much admitted behind the scenes the whole purpose of the drug war. The whole purpose was we want to criminalize the people who are our political enemies. And that's the hippie whites, the poor whites, and minorities. And go after them by going after their drugs of choice. I mean, again, this is like on the record. This is openly admitted to. And so any system where that's the genesis of it, I mean, I don't know how you can defend that system. That makes no sense to defend that system. And also, if you're truly a conservative, you should believe in small government and increased freedom, and it's very big government and authoritarian government to go after people for weed. And it's clearly anti-freedom to say to people, you can't put in your body whatever you want to put in your body as long as you're not hurting anybody else. So anyway, let's continue.
A supplement company that's owned by the same pharmaceutical companies.
But you can't patent a plant.
Yes, you can. They patented seven at
you
least.
You can patent strains that are GMOs.
No. 7 active chemical compounds in pot that have been patented as drugs. They've gone through the process.
Yeah,
There's
but
one
you
that's
can't
really
patent
efficient.
to the point where you can't grow pot. How would you stop someone if pot's legal? If pot's legal, how would anyone? And if that's the truth, then that's a real problem.
If pot is recognized as a medicine, right? If pot is recognized, there's no one who would stand to gain more than pharmaceutical companies by providing it as medicine.
It's not necessarily true if people are allowed to grow it themselves.
Maybe it's not necessarily true. I'll give you that. But I also think it's not necessarily true that the reason people can't smoke up is because Big Pharma is sitting somewhere, Martin Shkreli going, oh, let's make pot illegal.
Not that
That's
guy.
my only point.
You just call him Shkreli? It's Martin Shkreli.
But there are absolutely people who have lobbied, as we talked about how the prison guard union has lobbied to keep marijuana illegal. There's absolutely pharmaceutical companies have done the same thing. It was revealed in the WikiLeaks memos.
See, this is where I was saying
hold on, don't interrupt me, you fuck. Where Hillary Clinton said
that he's getting really dismissive with him because he's annoyed because I think what Rogan understands is that Steven Crowder is very partisan and he's very tribal. Like he's a down the line right winger, a down-the-line conservative Republican. And Rogan, for all of his flaws, he really doesn't like tribalism and political partisanship. Like, he doesn't respect that. Like, he likes people who he views as independent thinkers. And I think that this issue particularly gets under his skin because he used to be really anti-weed and he used to be really anti-drug. And then when he researched it and looked into it and tried it, he feels like, well, I was obviously wrong. So anybody who's even flirting with his old mindset, even like 5%, he's very against. And he's making that clear here.
She's against marijuana in every sense of the word, right? You remember those WikiLeaks papers that came out?
Yeah.
Is he? He said he would leave it up to the states.
Yeah.
That's actually a constitutional approach.
But he wants to beef up the war on drugs.
You know why? I bet someone slipped him a pot cookie once and he looked at his hair in the mirror. And
no, he's a teetotaler. He doesn't even drink.
What? They're talking about Trump, I think, now, but yeah, the beefing up the war on drugs was primarily from Jeff Sessions, who at the time was in his administration. He's a huge drug warrior.
The fuck?
Sold vodka, doesn't drink, Donald Trump. It's crazy.
Yeah. Ever?
No, he says he claims he's never had a
Colorado
drop.
topped $1 billion in legal marijuana sales in 2016.
Good.
Holla.
Yeah.
Holla at Colorado.
Yeah. But another thing that we just wrote about, and again, people get mad with the
Economics.
weed issue. Well, no. Traffic fatalities regarding marijuana have skyrocketed.
Google that because that's nonsense.
No, we wrote about it
drunk driving arrests have dropped. What do you mean? First of all,
I wrote about what the sources are, the original studies.
Just because someone gets in an accident and they're high.
See,
because hold on, stop.
No, hold on a second.
You interrupt way too much. You need to stop.
You talk
hold
in
on
paragraphs.
A second. No. I don't talk in paragraphs. I make full points. If people are high a lot and the same amount of fatalities exist, but the people that get checked once they get into these accidents happen to be high, it does not necessarily mean that marijuana caused those fatalities.
Yeah, he's making a causation-correlation argument. I will say I don't find it super outlandish, the idea that, when you have legal weed, that could potentially, you'd have to check it and look at the numbers, but that could potentially lead to more accidents among people who are high. But, it's a moot point anyway, because you could just ban driving while high. Like, alcohol is legal, right? But drunk driving is illegal. So you could have recreational marijuana legal, but say, hey, look, you can't drive if you're high, or you can't drive if you have, X amount of weed in your system. I don't know how good the tests are to, really determine all that stuff, but you guys get the point. So, intuitively, what Crowder is saying here doesn't strike me as crazy. But, the fact of the matter is the guy had a history of being a hardcore drug warrior. And honestly, I think the thing that made him back off of it was that the issue became so overwhelming in public opinion that he was just disenfranchising himself by continuing to go hard on the issue. He wouldn't be taken seriously on other things if he kept going hard at the drug issue, because now it's a 70% issue according to polls. So I think he just sensed the winds and was like, okay, I have to make a course correction here.
It could be that you have an increased incidence of people doing marijuana and altercations that could not have been avoided.
It could be.
It could be.
But the statistical change is measurable.
Well, what is it?
Pre and
You're
post.
talking about in Colorado.
In states where it's been decriminalized.
Let's go with Colorado. Pull it up,
Hold
Jamie.
on a second. You just said, let me make my point. Again, my point is I don't care about it.
Yeah, you do.
No, I really don't.
You don't care about people dying? You son of a bitch.
You get so touchy about it because someone says, you know what, if people want to smoke up, fine. I just don't really buy the arguments that everyone is in some big conspiracy to try and snuff it out.
No, there are some.
And the idea that the drug war will end and the idea that it cures cancer. I just don't buy that. And people get so upset.
Well, listen,
that's
scientific studies have proven that it shrinks tumors, that it helps people with cancer. Much like turmeric, much like any things that reduce inflammation, including
turmeric,
CBD
ginger,
oil.
tart cherry.
Right, but it's not necessarily a magical. They're all legal, and there's no issue because they're not psychoactive.
Right.
But they are beneficial. So all these things are good. Marijuana is one of the things that are good. And don't shore, man. Just like you don't shore turmeric, you don't shore ginger, you don't shore a reduced sugar diet. All those things that reduce inflammation are good for you.
I don't buy that smoking marijuana would be as beneficial as a reduced sugar diet. And my point is that people get so offended by me saying that and saying, but if you want to smoke, go ahead.
You might be correct.
Shouldn't be offensive.
But it doesn't matter because it's not a fucking contest to see what's the most beneficial. The question is it beneficial and is it damaging?
It is. It does matter. The
What's
fact
damaging?
That you said, no, let me finish my point. It does matter. You said, what would you not talk about? I said, probably pot because I don't care. Well, what do you think about it? I said,
care. That's
this
why
is
you're
what I
arguing
think
with me about it.
And your eyes light up. And all of a sudden, we're ideology and worldview.
Yeah, Stephen, he cares about the issue. and I understand why he cares about the issue. It makes sense. He used to be really against it. Then he started doing it and researching it. And now he flipped to being really in favor of it. And it's a crime that we have, so many people locked up as a result of the drug war. How many people's lives have been ruined because of a small amount of weed sales or being caught smoking weed and you get a criminal record, then you can't get a job? I mean, it is deeply authoritarian. The drug war is deeply authoritarian. We always throw around that word authoritarianism when talking about like dictatorships, but we have many authoritarian policies in this country, and this is one of them. So yeah, he cares because this is an issue that's close to him, and he thinks the current policy is stupid. I don't know why Crowder thinks that's some sort of own, to be like, well, you care about this, bro. It's like, yeah, well, you should. And, I wish Joe was this animated about a variety of different issues. I wish he was this animated about, like Medicare for all, for example, or unions, or like a living wage, or ending wars. I mean, it'd be great, it'd be wonderful, it'd be ideal.
Like crazy.
Shouldn't be discussed.
No,
You're going to laser me like a tractor beam on the most important issue of the day that I said I don't care.
You're the guy that thinks people should be able to do whatever. You're a free market guy,
that's
right?
What I just said.
So if you're a free market guy, why wouldn't you be in support of something, whether it's the most beneficial or equally beneficial? But you're not necessarily because you're denying.
But because right now of the chemical compounds.
Hold on, fuckface. You're denying.
He said, "Hold on, fuckface." Oh man, this is glorious. I like this. I forgot how good this was.
Watch it. Come on. It's been a good conversation.
We're friends. I'm just joking. Since marijuana legalization, highway fatalities in Colorado are at near historic lows.
You haven't bringing up the source that you want to find.
So see, Crowder got caught speeding here. When you actually looked at the numbers, it turns out the thing that sounded intuitively correct, of like traffic accidents going up because weed is legalized and more people are high and they're crashing while they're high. It turns out that's not true, at least based on this article from the Washington Post, which, I have to read the article, but it seems like it's probably a decent source.
Washington
Bring
Post.
up the study right there. Yeah, Washington Post. Bring up the study that we wrote. We wrote about it on our website.
Look, I don't care about your website, you fuck. Since marijuana legalization, highway fatalities in Colorado
Since you called me a fucking pussy, and you do this with the crazy lady at a comedy club,
buddy,
you think if you scream enough that it makes a point. My point is, I don't care about it.
I don't think that if we
Smoke
scream
up.
enough.
And you just said I was interrupting. You're interrupting now and screaming.
Because
I don't care about it
put
enough.
up a post and you're not.
But I don't buy
ignoring
that it's as valuable as a low sugar diet. And the fact
doesn't have to be as
that you
valuable.
can't have a conversation about this as civilly as you did every other issue tells me that there's a problem. This is a TNT powder keg.
I can. The problem is I get very defensive when people start talking over me, and you started it first. But the reality is that a low sugar diet is fine.
Sure.
It's good too. Why is there a competition between a low sugar diet and turmeric and marijuana and CBD oil? Why? Why does it even have to be discussed?
Because one is making the claim regarding legality that it cures cancer.
Because my only point is I don't believe it.
No, my only point is
because the other ones are already legal. They don't have to fight for it.
But no one's prescribing, no one's dishing out dispensaries for turmeric or ginger.
They certainly are if you go to these local juice shops.
Anyway.
You go to these juice shops, people are promoting ginger like crazy, turmeric like crazy. Go online.
Couldn't care less people want to smoke joints.
You're an ideologue, buddy.
Really? That's an ideologue position by saying leave it to the states?
Yeah, you're locked in, man.
Really?
You're locked deep into this fucking red state thing, man.
I was raised in a socialist province of Quebec.
Your bread is buttered, buddy.
A socialist province of Quebec.
And meanwhile, you're over here in America fucking just as much of an immigrant as some dude who sneaks over the wall Trump just built.
I was born in Detroit, so that remains to be seen. It could be annexed.
And that's what a lot of people proved you're full of shit about Colorado and traffic deaths. Should we go and fuck you up with this too?
Yeah. When you have your guy looking up
feel
sources.
Bad about the Colorado thing at all?
What? I never said Colorado. I said states that legalize marijuana.
What other ones are there?
Well, you didn't bring up the source that I wrote about.
I can.
But the fact that you're still hung up on it.
Hold please. What?
I got the article. I've been looking at it for like the last few minutes on your website.
Yeah.
There's a couple statements that are really bad just off the gate, like this right here. If you want to get high, you're a moron.
And getting high will make you more of a moron.
That's not a news article.
Right. Hold on, please.
That's commentary.
Hold on. But fine. After all, things like Coachella wouldn't exist. Is this your article?
Yeah.
I think it's an article on my site.
Oh, wait a minute. If you want to get high, you're a moron?
Yeah, I think
you think you're a moron?
I think Courtney believes that, yeah.
Who is Courtney?
She's
she works
probably
for
one of the best writers I think I've ever encountered.
How dare you not read then?
But so then the article links to a couple, like this, for instance, is one that says it has deadliest year of traffic fatalities since 2008.
Yeah.
This article doesn't say anything about marijuana, not one thing. Doesn't mention weed at once. It does say that it could be attributed to lower gas prices, people driving more, more people in the state,
sure,
et cetera, et cetera.
Well,
but
more people in the
state. That's not the only thing. This is important. I'm going to defend myself here because you have someone here at the ready, and what you do is instead of bringing up information, this is what happens with Christopher Titus, right? You don't have information that you bring up. You have another guy look up a source that you specifically want him to find.
I didn't ask him to bring that up.
Yes, you did. And he brought up Washington Post and goes, "This is what's wrong with your article." Taking a joke out of context. He had already been talking.
You didn't have a joke.
The joke in there about things like Coachella wouldn't exist if there weren't.
Okay,
that's clearly a joke.
In that article.
That's a joke,
right? But
to try and go, do you think people who smoke pot are morons? No, it's a joke.
Okay.
Let's not do that.
Okay.
Let's not do that.
And no, pot's not comparable to alcohol. There are tests that determine how much alcohol content is in your bloodstream. We can't yet do that with weed, so it's impossible to handle these incidents in the same way.
That's pretty fair.
But there have been tests where they showed people
But
drunk,
that would go back to what he said and what you said.
But there have been tests where they've shown people drunk versus on marijuana, and the people on marijuana drove far better.
Okay,
that's true.
So this is also anecdotal.
No, these are tests.
It goes back to your point, right? Let's say someone has alcohol in their system.
Are these tests?
Well, I haven't read your test.
Okay, so why are you arguing against them?
No, I'm saying I agreed with your point earlier.
So why are you saying they're anecdotal?
Well, it is anecdotal if you're saying some people drive better on marijuana
than
alcohol.
I'm not saying that. I've said there have been tests where they've shown that people drive better on marijuana than alcohol. That's not anecdotal.
My point is, if you want to
smoke weed, go ahead. You're looking to be really good at this argument here.
No, I'm not.
You need to settle down.
You said you wouldn't pile on, and you got two people.
I'm not piling down. He's not talking.
Yeah, it is.
I love this. So Joe brought up a fact before from the Washington Post, and Steven Crowder is mad at that, which means he's just mad at the fact-checking. He's just mad at them pulling up receipts. Every single time I was on Joe Rogan and I said something that was like somewhat controversial, I'd look at Jamie and be like, if you want to pull that up, I think it was in like The Guardian or whatever, and he'd look and he'd find it. Because, I don't want anybody to take my word for stuff. I want you to see where I got it from and why I'm saying it. Steven Crowder is doing the exact opposite. He's deflecting and obfuscating and saying, well, your source doesn't count because I don't agree with it. And then now he's triggered at the fact that one of his own articles got pulled up, or it was an article on his website from one of the other writers. But something from his website got pulled up and he's getting triggered. Why? Because a lot of the stuff in there is really stupid, and it is that hardcore drug warrior stuff. And he's like, oh, a lot of those things are jokes. I don't think it's a joke when they say, like, if you smoke weed, you're a moron. I think that's how they actually thought. I don't know when that article was written, but my guess is it's probably, like 2012 or something like that. And back then, that was like standard conservative position. Like, that was a very common Republican thing to say. They think people who do any sorts of drugs are lazy, and they don't work hard, and they have bad moral values, et cetera, et cetera. And now, the national mood on that has shifted. There's so many brilliant people who are now open and out with the fact that they smoke weed or do other drugs. And so he's caught speeding, and he's trying to save face here. I like how heated this is getting. This is really interesting to me.
Yeah,
he's not talking. He brought something up.
When someone comes on the show, Jared cannot interject.
Congratulations, you're not on the show. And all he did was pull up some fucking information.
Two people bringing up information, me without a laptop.
No, he brought it up. I talked about it. He didn't even talk about it.
You said, what would be the one thing that you changed your mind on?
Is there a problem when two people are correct and you're incorrect? Does that bother you?
I don't agree that you're correct.
What are you talking about? You just...
I'm sorry, Joe's 100% right here. You can't get mad at them bringing up sources. Look, if you want to say, I'm not sure about that source, here's the thing that I read, go to blank website, fill in the blank. Okay, that's fine, but he's not even doing that. He's just losing his mind because he's basically being pummeled on a point where he's wrong.
pulled up some statistics that show that Colorado has less traffic fatalities.
No, I didn't.
Since
I didn't
2000.
pull up any statistics.
No, he did.
You
saw
just said
them.
you. You just said you.
I will
So
give
no,
you
that's
my
not
laptop.
correct.
I'll turn my laptop
That's
your
not
way,
correct.
and you can pull up some shit that shows
You said,
contrary
what is
evidence.
the issue that you would care about the least, that you changed your mind? And I said, probably wouldn't even talk about pot.
That's a long version of what you said.
And
what
then
you
you said, well, why?
was there have been more fatalities since marijuana has been legal in those states.
In all the things we've discussed,
it's not true.
Why are you so obsessed with the pot issue?
Because you're not right, and it doesn't matter if we've talked about it for 4 hours. In this instance, you are incorrect. You know you're incorrect.
No, I'm not incorrect in that instance. That traffic fatalities have increased in areas where pot have increased. We did the same study in Michigan where pot was legalized and people were actually selling more marijuana to underage kids. I don't care if
that doesn't have anything to do with traffic fatalities.
It does have to do with it.
It doesn't have anything to do with traffic fatalities unless you can prove there's more traffic fatalities in underage kids since marijuana has been legal.
Yeah, there have been several articles that have made that claim, made that assertion.
Let's find them.
We've written about it.
Let's find them.
They all come from one article mostly, and it's from these AAA stats. And this is the stats that they said. And it's almost all the articles you're talking about come from this one article.
Okay, so it says the percentage of drivers involved in fatal crashes who recently used marijuana more than doubled from 8 to 17% from 2013 to 2014.
Yeah.
1 in 6 drivers involved in fatal crashes from 2014 had recently used marijuana, which is the most recent data available. Now, do you understand that causation does not equal
involving marijuana
correlation?
is alarming.
Yeah, it says who?
That's an opinion.
It's an opinion.
President and CEO of AAA Foundation.
Yeah, he says it's alarming. Well, is that
Also, I think this is kind of a moot point because that has no bearing on whether or not marijuana should be legal recreationally, because you should just have rules about not getting high and driving. And, if you want to say, hey, you need to better enforce those rules and those laws, okay, fair enough. But nobody looks at the fact that we have a tremendous number of drunk driving deaths and says we should ban recreational alcohol. Nobody does that because that's deeply authoritarian and anti-freedom. But of course, this is the implication of what Steven Crowder is arguing.
matter of more people smoking marijuana because it's legal, or is it a matter of the marijuana causing these accidents?
Is this not an article put out by
Do you know what
AAA?
else is true? Do you know what else is true? That all these people also had alcohol in their system. Do you know that?
Well, no, we don't know that all of them had alcohol in their system.
It's a giant percentage of
Well,
people that
hold on
were
a second. You
involved
just
in these
made an assumption
accidents.
that you know this
no,
to be
I know
true.
this because I've read
all
these
of them
studies.
had alcohol in their system.
I
Can
didn't
you
say
prove
that.
You
I
just
said
all.
a lot of them.
Rewind the tape. You
Maybe
said
I
all.
did say all. A lot of them.
Well, you made a lot of
Shitload.
assumptions
Let's
here.
find out.
It doesn't say anything in the article about alcohol, though, and for sure they should have tested that and put that
They should,
information
and for
in
sure
there.
they can't test.
Well,
By the way,
just
I'm talking
Google
with two guys
how
who
many
just
people-
smoked up a joint.
Just Google
and
what-
are
what
mad.
does that have to do with anything?
It makes a point that you're going to have an obvious position that would disagree with this.
By the way, low-key, it's so clear that Jamie despises Steven Crowder. Based Jamie. I mean, look, this aside, I've always really liked Jamie. Like, when you meet him in person behind the scenes, he's just like a quiet, cool dude. And, again, every time I, cite something that's even a little bit controversial, he pulls it up on the show, and I don't think there's been a single time where I've said something, and then that required a source, and then he didn't show it and source it. And so I think low-key, I think he's got, good politics.
It's one single article. So if I can finish a point, you've talked about interruption. Let me finish the one point that I'm making.
Well, you've
you
already
can't
been
test
proven.
for marijuana.
You've already been
You can't
proven.
test for marijuana roadside, right? Can we agree on
No,
that?
you absolutely can.
You
yeah,
can?
there's new tests. Yes,
Okay, there's new tests.
that are
How
available
recent
right
are
now.
these tests?
Let's find out. Let's find out. Before you do
But
that,
they
though,
didn't test, like you said.
How many of the marijuana related fatalities also involved alcohol? Because it's a massively significant percentage.
Yeah.
So you can't necessarily say that just because they have these new tests for marijuana.
I will say, though, I don't... It does sound kind of intuitive to me that if you're driving while you're high on weed, that could be dangerous and that could lead to more accidents. Now, maybe I'm biased by the fact that the way I experience weed is kind of powerful. Whatever my, genetics are or my biology is, I kind of get paranoid when I get high. Weed affects me very, very powerfully. And so I know that if I tried to drive when I was high, if I'm really high, that would not be safe. So I wouldn't do it. Now, not everybody's like me. People experience it in a variety of different ways. And I'm sure there's some percentage of the population that actually can drive while they're high, and it's fine. I probably shouldn't say this, but if I have 2 beers in me, I could still drive. That doesn't affect me in that way. The alcohol doesn't affect me in that way. But still, we should have the anti-drunk driving laws, and I'd have no problem with anti-driving while high laws. But I don't think it doesn't intuitively sound crazy to me what Steven Crowder is arguing about how, hey, weed could lead to more driving deaths. But again, it's a moot point anyway, because whether it does or it doesn't is irrelevant to the question of whether or not we should have legal recreational weed. We absolutely should. And then you could just have other rules and regulations and laws around that determine what age you're allowed to smoke or what you can do while you're high. You shouldn't like fucking operate heavy machinery while you're blasted off your ass cheeks. So that's all obvious. Anyway, let's continue.
Especially roadside marijuana.
That's the problem, is you can't. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll give you that.
What are you giving me?
Let's say you're correct.
But here's the thing.
So let's say you're correct.
Physiologically, it doesn't have an effect on motor skills the way alcohol does. Where it doesn't...
It definitely does for me. It definitely does for me. Now, again, maybe that's just me. Maybe it's a tiny percentage of weed smokers, but it certainly does for me.
Slow down your response time.
Well, I know that we've had several doctors on the show, 2 of whom had differing opinions on that.
They don't have to be right.
They don't have to be right.
Opinions of it. Do they smoke marijuana themselves? Do they know what it's like?
Now we're getting to this whole
have they studied all the
marijuana.
different... CBS News caught blatantly distorting cannabis study says legal pot doubles fatal car crashes.
This comes from Mint Press News. So again, we can go into questioning sources all day long if you have someone else bringing up sources.
You don't think this is a good source? You think
maybe
they're lying?
It is. Maybe it is. Let's say you're right.
Crowder, but
let's say you're well. Louder Crowder, we source that to something else.
Jamie with the devastating one-liners.
Oh, and you guys are so defensive on one issue, and you said, "What's the issue you don't?"
By the way, Jamie also loves golf. So the next time I'm on Rogan's podcast, I want to go golfing with Jamie because everybody knows I'm obsessed with golf. So I'd love to go golfing with him in Austin somewhere.
There's people online also sourcing them. They are skewed. You're skewing them to make
and so
your
is the
case.
Washington Post study that you skewed.
But you're not the Washington Post. You're supposed to be the answer to the Washington Post.
I'm not the answer to the Washington Post.
Don't say that someone's evil, so I'm evil too.
Well, you just said that.
Is that what you're saying?
That's the argument that you just made.
No, I didn't make that argument. You just said, come on, man.
You just made that argument. And all of a sudden, when someone mentions pot, you put on the ideologue hat where your worldview is through the lens of weed.
No, dude.
And you get upset with anyone having a different opinion.
Bullshit. It has nothing to do with weed.
Yeah, but you haven't made an argument.
I haven't made an argument. You said that the fatalities increased. We showed you what happened in Colorado.
What have you shown me?
We showed you the statistics that show that marijuana and traffic violations, they correlates to less
may not be causal
accidents.
Right? Your argument is it may not be caused.
Okay, so what else is causing the dropped number? And why can't you show...
the increase in number?
What increase? This fake increase
from
that you're bringing up?
Fake news?
It's not real. It's not real. Colorado shows it's not real. So where is it real?
Well, this comes from a AAA study that was AAA and Trustee Safety Council.
AAA is owned by the Bilderberg Group, bro.
Oh, God.
You don't even know this.
So now we're going to go to Weed Cures Cancer and people having meetings with Rams heads.
You've got one article that says one thing and one article from Colorado that says there's been a decrease in traffic fatalities.
Right.
You're not willing to recognize that.
I just said, let's give that to you. Because this entire conversation started with you saying, what issue would you change your mind on?
No,
and I said, probably pot. Because here's what I think.
This argument started with you saying that it causes more fatalities and traffic violations.
That's not true. That's not true. You said, which issue do you not care about?
Did
I said
that?
pot.
Did you say it causes more traffic fatalities?
What's your opinion on pot? And I said, I really don't care if people want to smoke pot. I think it's a state issue. I honestly don't care. I've changed my mind.
By the way, it's not a state issue. It shouldn't be a state issue. It's a federal issue, and it should be legal recreationally around the entire country. If Alabama wants to lock up some 19-year-old who smokes weed and ruin their life over that, that shouldn't be okay because it's Alabama and they decided to do that. Authoritarianism is authoritarian, whether or not it's at the federal level or the state level. So at the national level, at the federal level, it should be legal for recreational use. So I think even that's such a fucking dodge. This is the dodge that I got when I questioned Chris Christie at Politicon to his face about the issue of weed. And he did soften his position under my questioning, but he softened his position to, it was ban it at the federal level, it's dangerous, and then he softened it to leave it up to the states, but I personally think it should be banned at the state level. So he softened it, but it's still a bullshit position. It should be legal federally.
And where as a kid I thought it was harmful. I don't think it's harmful anymore.
But didn't you say that it causes more traffic fatalities?
Then you said, well, let's expand on this. What issue do you have with pot? I said, I don't like the dishonesty where people just say it cures cancer, it'll end the war on drugs, it's completely harmlous, and I have some arguments that it's not harmless. No, it's not entirely harmless.
Well,
it's not without consequences.
Well, consequences based on what?
And I've given you so much leeway there on that one.
How have you?
It literally started from me saying I probably couldn't care less about this out of all the other issues that we discuss, and you lasered in on that and go, where do we disagree on this?
Because you're looking for an argument. No, because it's a huge blind spot.
No, it's not a huge blind spot.
It's definitely
Do you think I'm working for the Bilderbergs out there trying to ban pot?
It is a huge blind spot. Again, the reason why Steven Crowder had the position he had was because he's a doctrinaire right-wing guy. He's a conservative Republican. And he goes down the line on every single issue. And, now, again, under the pressure of public scrutiny and the polls shifting massively against him, he sort of ever so slightly adjusted his position, but I think that's what pisses Rogan off, is that it's a reactionary opinion. It's totally thoughtless, and he's sort of nailing him to the wall here.
If you say that marijuana is in some way or another a dangerous thing,
yes.
I can tell you that it's not.
No, I didn't say a dangerous thing.
Well,
it's not without consequences.
What are the consequences?
Okay, what do you believe?
Even if it is, in some circumstances, dangerous, so is alcohol. That doesn't mean we should ban it. Again, I know I'm a broken record.
Marijuana does, for example. Well, no, I'm not going to get baited into this because you're going to get me. You're trying to force me to say that I don't think pot cures cancer and there's a big farm. No, listen, smoke pot.
No, that's not.
I will ask this.
I'm trying to say what are the consequences of it.
You come on my show. I would love to and have a discussion about it in real time. I think so.
Well,
last time on the show,
you're in front of me right
now.
You're in front of me right now. Why do I have to come on
having a conversation, you and I, right now?
We would definitely have a conversation
bring
for
up
hours. Oh, that's not good to read
it's
sources.
Not fair. It's not fair to have two people.
What's fair?
Just like before, you said
no
you
data.
think of Amy.
Should we be in a room with no internet?
You think if Amy and I ganged up on you, think you would have done well in that argument? Come on, man.
Because I want to find out how you feel, how you think. I want to see if you get defensive.
But for some reason, you said you think if her and I were together, you think you would have done well on that.
Yeah, because I want to see if you get defensive.
But
do you ever fuck with somebody in a conversation?
Why wouldn't
you ever fuck with somebody? You do that, right?
No, but you've made it all about the pot issue.
No, that had nothing to do with pot. The Amy Schumer thing had nothing to do with pot.
You've gotten into this pot issue because of
the
an issue where you think
Schumer
there's
thing
an
is what you
argument,
just brought up.
and it's the one area that you're super informed and interested in.
Adorable. You're adorable.
And that's the same thing as saying you're not a real comedian.
No, you're adorable.
You've never debated someone
this
on an open territory without someone else to back up your argument. It's never happened.
This is not a backup when someone pulls up in.
You see what Steven Crowder is doing now? He's trying to be like, you're an intellectual lightweight. You're a debating lightweight, and you can't do this without the sources. You should be like a real man like me and debate without the sources. That is a fucking Weasley-ass point. Because the whole point of the conversation, or the discussion, or the debate, is like, let's get to the truth. And it helps to get to the truth if you can bring in sources and data and information. And he's making the point that, like, that's a bad thing, and you shouldn't do that because that's like ganging up on me. Which is ironically, like, the most bitch-ass position you can take, as he's basically claiming, like, Rogan is a bitch for allowing in the data. God, it's so weaselly. Oh, he's being so fucking disingenuous.
Information. Let me tell you something. One thing that Jamie does is he pulls up evidence to the contrary. If I was wrong, he would stick it right in my face and we would laugh about it. And that's what he does.
Yeah, but I'm that's why he pulled up evidence to the contrary.
That is true, by the way. That is true. Rogan even the whole, like, anti-vaccine thing when he had on Josh Zepps fairly recently. Josh Zepps brought up this whole myocarditis thing. There's a higher rate of myocarditis from young people who get COVID versus young people who get the vaccine. Rogan didn't believe that. It was a strongly held position of his. And then as soon as Jamie pulled up the sources which proved that Josh Zepps was right, Rogan had a slight bit of resistance, but then eventually he sort of caved and said, I guess you're right. And then after the podcast, he even tweeted about it and was like, Josh Zepps made me look dumb, but I'm happy he made me look dumb because he's my friend and he was right. So Rogan's 100% right about that. He's being honest. He's being open.
I've given it to you.
What evidence? You haven't given me shit.
I've given you the argument.
What
and
argument?
I'm saying, fine, let's say there's no causation. Let's say that wasn't backed up well enough. Let's give you that argument.
Okay. What's this, Jamie?
And
there's also some evidence that medical marijuana laws may contribute to decreasing traffic fatalities.
This is what part of the show is me doing this, though. If we don't do that,
this is what we always do. It's just talking about facts. Listen to this. Hold, please. There are also some evidence that that doesn't make any sense. There are also some evidence. That's not there's also. Okay, I'm wrong. That medical marijuana laws may contribute to decreasing traffic fatalities. One study published in the Journal of Law and Economics in 2013 reviewed traffic fatalities in the 19 states that had passed medical.
Yeah, but this is causation correlation too. It's not because of the weed that you had, the accidents go down. So this also has a causation correlation issue.
Medical marijuana laws by 2010 and found that legalization is associated with an 8 to 11% decrease in traffic fatalities for the year after the laws took effect. The researchers from the University of Colorado, Denver, and elsewhere also found the decrease is more significant for alcohol-related fatalities at 13.2%.
Can I ask a question?
Pretty interesting.
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
Why is that study from 2010 considered completely valid to you and the study from AAA in 2014 considered completely invalid?
AAA's got a fucking biased interest.
There you go.
Because
there you go.
They're
chemtrails
a big
and bias.
Company.
People can have different opinions.
In charge. Well, what are they basing it on?
So your argument is this is the only valid study because AAA is biased.
But this is a study.
It's
Why
a study.
Are you ignoring? Do you think that's right, or think they're lying?
I think it could be right. I think it could be right.
So if they're right, if that study's right, then you were wrong, right?
If that study's right,
then you were wrong, right?
I could be wrong.
You were wrong, right? When you were just spouting it out. So we proved that in Colorado you were wrong.
You didn't
prove.
And if
that study is true, well,
you didn't prove. You said here's what you do. If
let's pull that up again. Figure out what caused the Colorado
study. I asked one question and then you get a paragraph.
You like doing this, don't you?
Joe, I literally said I'll give it to you. you win the argument, and you bring up another thing about pot.
Well, it's because you don't really give up. You reluctantly give up.
I said I'll give it to you. You're right. Let's assume I'm wrong.
You're definitely wrong.
Let's assume I'm wrong.
Okay, so what else would be the problem with marijuana if it wasn't traffic fatalities?
I don't
zero,
even
right?
No, not zero.
What, zero?
But I don't want to spend the entire day talking about pot.
Well, come on, man. We're talking about real issues. What would be the other problems if it wasn't for traffic fatalities?
Before you go, oh man, just loosen up. Let's talk about life and jiu-jitsu. Then you get in one thing.
I didn't say jiu-jitsu. I said let's talk.
You're obsessed.
I just want to get you away from your left versus right talking points because I'm neither.
Because people with convictions, the left-right paradigm.
Bertrand
the
Russell
left-right paradigm. I'm a centrist.
I kind of am.
Joe, here's the thing. And I started off and I still mean the complimentary things I said. But you can't bring people on and call them pussy and dumb fuck
on, bro. We're
and bias
I can't.
and then continue going back to an issue. And
why is he being such a bitch? Why is he being such a bitch?
With someone who agrees with you entirely and act as though, now you're defensive? Well, of course I'm defensive.
Well, I think that you were spewing a little bit of anti-marijuana propaganda about traffic fatalities, and I had to address it.
Anti-marijuana propaganda. That's right. I'm paid by Big Pharma.
No, I'm not thinking you're paid by anybody, but I just think you had a point of view.
So why would I push the propaganda? Propaganda.
Because you're a doctrinaire Republican. That's why. Because you go down the line with everything that's right-wing and take the position of the day. That's how you make your money. That's why you were wrong. You were just honestly, ideologically wrong. It's not, I don't think he's being paid by Big Pharma or whatever. I mean, I'm sure he's got advertisers who are questionable, but I don't think that this particular view of his is influenced by money. He was just wrong about it.
By definition means I have to be pushing it for someone.
It's not necessarily that someone is telling you to do it. It's just that you had a point of view that you had dug your heels in.
And it's not propaganda.
It is
it's
propaganda. It's propaganda if you have read it and you are spouting it out. But
now he's just going to get bogged down on what's the definition of propaganda, bro? How could it be propaganda if I'm not paid to do it? Isn't part of propaganda being paid?
That statistics prove differently.
Well, okay. Then I would say it's propaganda for someone saying weed cures cancer.
I'm not saying you're promoting propaganda like someone's asking you. Okay, pull that up then, Jamie.
Weed cures cancer.
Find out whether... Not saying cures. Doesn't marijuana have beneficial effects?
No. That wasn't my claim.
Weed cures cancer. Nothing cures cancer.
And that was what I was talking about. I
literally says nothing cures anything. I mean, things treat things.
Half of your listeners will tweet me saying,
is there a single drug that cures anything? Things treat things. Your immune system kicks in. If your immune system fails...
Plenty of drugs that cure.
Okay, what drug cures things?
Polio vaccine. Done.
Okay, polio vaccine doesn't cure things, you fuck. It prevents you from getting polio.
Oh, wow. I didn't know Steven Crowder was pro the polio vaccine. I didn't know that. Score one for Steven Crowder here.
Polio.
The disease is effectively cured.
Do you understand what you just said?
Yeah.
You just disproved yourself.
No, I didn't just prove
No, the disease is not effectively cured in the person who has polio. We're talking about marijuana curing cancer on people that don't have cancer yet. That's not what it's not a vaccine for cancer. Okay. What you're saying is marijuana cures cancer with people that have cancer. There's not a fucking drug. You proved yourself. There's not a medicine that proves that you can't fucking cure polio with a medicine.
You get so aggressive on the pot issue.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong right here about polio. Do you understand how blindsided you are?
Right now.
You have a blind spot.
I'm pretty sure there's drugs out there that cure some diseases.
I'm sure there are. I never heard of them.
Well, they
exist. Do you know who they are? Name one.
Not offhand if I had someone who could bring it up.
No, you don't have to bring it up.
Just random fact. Technically, the rabies vaccine you can take after you already got bitten by an animal with rabies, and it'll save your life. So rabies is actually one of the most fatal diseases out there. If you get rabies, it's like over a 90% chance you're going to die. But the latency period is so long, you can get bitten by an animal with rabies, and then after you get bitten, go and get the rabies vaccine, and it will cure you. So in a weird way, the rabies vaccine is like a cure. Does that make sense? And I'm sure there are some other cures out there, but I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to venture into any other medical things.
Man, you're going to argue for it, shouldn't you?
I didn't argue for it.
I don't think
you
there
said
are
you don't
drugs
think there are any drugs that cure anyone, and I think that's incorrect.
Your immune system has to be in place. If you're like dying and someone gives you some sort of a drug, how many drugs are there that cure a nasty disease that's killing you, and how many of them have to?
I like how they're having a heated argument now that's just like a branch off of the weed argument. This is like every single, 18, 19-year-old guy with his guy friends, like in the dorm room or whatever, in an apartment, drinking beers, can relate to this.
Be also compensated. Your immune system has to kick in as well. There's a bunch of factors. It's not like how many. I mean, there's penicillin that kills some like venereal diseases and all sorts of different fucking horrible infections.
Yeah,
but there's not a lot. But it takes your immune system has to be in effect too. There's a lot of factors.
So now we're getting to the definition of cure. And
man, because you're talking about fucking polio. Nothing cures polio, bitch. And marijuana, no one's saying marijuana cures cancer.
This is great. This is like, see, Rogan is a comedian first and foremost, and so like this is how he talks. Like he just talks shit with his friends, and Steven Crowder is all like prim and proper. I mean, I guess technically Steven Crowder is a comedian too, but I don't think he hangs out in the same sort of fucking comedy clubs that Rogan and his friends hang out in. And so like Steven Crowder's like clutching his pearls and falling on his fainting couch, like, you called me a bitch, and you called me fuckface, and you called me a pussy. I'm amazed that after this, they still remain friends. And by the way, just so you know, Rogan actually apologized after this episode and said he was like, I was too aggressive. I shouldn't have kept pushing on the issue, et cetera, et cetera. He definitely shouldn't have apologized. He really shouldn't have. Rogan was right. He was right. I mean, look, there are minor points here and there where you could have disagreements, but like, he was right. And so I think the reason why he apologized, just because he's like a nice person. He didn't like that he made Steven Crowder feel like awkward and uncomfortable. But, look, I'm sure this worked to some extent to like bully him off of being so anti-weed publicly. Like I'm sure he softened his position even more after this.
All the time.
These are assholes. Those are the same people that say you're a Nazi. Those are the same people that say you're a Nazi.
No, it's pretty common. It's pretty common.
Fucking Nazi, punch Nazis.
Well, for example, we had a woman on the show, a psychiatrist, who basically said, people who are adult, healthy, smoke pot, it's probably not a problem. So it is a problem for the developing brain, people who are under the age of 25. And she explained as
probably
to why.
Correct.
Yeah, and she explained as to why.
I don't think they think that the human brain is even fully developed. Your frontal cortex.
And she talked about specifically also people who might have mental illnesses, whether it's schizophrenia or bipolar. Most people don't realize that, or depression. It goes unrecognized. And she talked about how for those people, marijuana can act as a trigger mechanism. So she said, healthy people, none of these conditions, marijuana is probably relatively benign. But for some of these people, and most people who might have these conditions are afflicted by them, it could be a real problem.
She's got some very good points, but do you know that...
I actually think that's probably true. Again, I just don't think that that's a compelling case to ban it federally. It should be legal for recreational use. But again, I think that's probably true. In fact, I probably fall into that group. I fall into the group of people who certainly shouldn't use weed regularly. And if I do use it, literally just take like one hit.
The comments are, weed cures cancer, this dumb bitch should get off the show.
Look at this. Cannabis has been shown to kill cancer cells in laboratory tests. See question 6.
Yeah, it doesn't cure cancer, though.
Well, kill cancer cells. No one's saying cure cancer.
Yes,
beneficial effects on
I'm
cancer.
telling you exactly what people say.
But you compared it to turmeric, you compared it to all these things. But look, the point being, I think you agree and I agree that as long as it doesn't hurt other people any more than anything else, like sugar hurts other people. Look, if you want to make an argument for high insurance rates and you want to look at the overall causes of disease in this country and why insurance and health insurance cost so much, you would almost immediately go towards simple sugar. Like simple sugar is a huge problem with people who are obese. Obesity is a huge issue in this country, and it's a major factor when it comes to healthcare costs, right?
I think it's adorable that you're telling me how to craft arguments. And
but
I know
don't
that
you
do this, Joe.
I'm not saying that.
But
don't
I think it's adorable.
I didn't think that Rogan did not strike me like he was doing that. He was trying to make, a point that's pertinent and relevant to the discussion here. And Crowder, again, is getting defensive.
It's an easier argument to say that ice cream should be illegal than it is that marijuana should be illegal.
No, I don't. And
why that? Tell me why.
No, I'm going to say what I was about to say
beforehand,
because you keep redirecting the conversation. And and for some reason, you're turning it into something hostile that it really doesn't need to be.
It's not hostile.
It is.
It might be to you.
Yeah, it is.
You feel weird about it. I feel great.
It is. It is when someone comes into something where they know they disagree and two other people with the same opinion are going to do a team up.
He doesn't even have an opinion.
I think that...
Look at this.
Do a team up. What a bitch.
What you're doing right now, Joe, is like you talk about with people in jiu-jitsu. Is what I think.
There are now 100 scientific studies that say that.
I think that you think these arguments work.
Cannabis cures cancer.
I think that you think these arguments work, and I think it's like someone going to jiu-jitsu for the first time. You've never done it. I don't think you've ever actually gotten to a place without someone who can bring up sources for you. I don't think you've gotten into an argument or done anything with a debate team where people would actually hold you accountable to the arguments that you make.
He's doing the whole, while you were out partying, I was studying the blade. While you were getting laid, I was studying the blade. I, Steven Crowder, am the master of the spoken word. And you, Joe Rogan, with your puny mind, will never understand my greatness. I can go into an open forum of debate and discussion and win in the marketplace of ideas, whereas you, Joe Rogan, require data and information and sources to get your point across. Oh, he's so embarrassing. Oh my God. For all I don't know, how old are Steven Crowder's fans? For all the 14-year-old skinny weirdos who love this guy, it's not too late. I'm telling you right now, dog, it's not too late. Hop up off the show's nuts. Find a new show. There's like 40 of them you could pick from that are way fucking better than this, man. I mean, this guy's embarrassing. This guy is pathetic. So, look, doesn't have to be my show, but if you want to come to my show, you're more than welcome to watch this show. I'll steer you in the right direction. But pick some other show, because this guy is the worst of the worst.
I think
why are you saying you don't think that I have if you don't know what conversations I've had?
I've never seen it.
So what, have you been with me 24/7 for 49
my
years?
point is this. I think you would be very surprised.
Conversations.
Right now, you're the Kung Fu guy hitting the Kung Fu doll with the spikes.
And
you convinced yourself that this is an argument that would work if you had other people more qualified than myself to discuss it. And you decided to zone in on an argument that you knew you would disagree with.
This is a cute way of you diffusing all these stats that Jamie keeps bringing up. There's more than 100 studies that proves that cannabis cures cancer.
Exactly.
Do you deny those studies? You don't need a Jamie.
Where's my Jamie?
Jamie's pulling shit off the internet. He's not writing it, man.
You asked me specifically about something where I changed my mind.
Okay.
So you clearly were ready or upset about the pot thing.
I wasn't ready.
I said,
I didn't even think we were
probably
going to
wouldn't talk about that anymore because I don't really care about it, and I think states should be able to legalize it.
Well, if you don't care about it, you seem...
By the way, this directly flies in the face of the conservative narrative that, like, who, me, bro? I'm all about the marketplace of ideas, bro. Let's talk it out. May the right person win. And this shows that he's like, when it gets demonstrated to his face that, hey man, you're off on this thing, he gets really fucking defensive and really sensitive. So, I mean, jeez.
Because you asked me 3 follow-up questions. It'd be like me asking you why you endorsed Bernie Sanders on this show tacitly, saying you would vote.
Because Bernie Sanders is based, bitch.
Talking about
when in the green room with the billiard stuff, he
fatalities.
said, man, he's insane with the socialist stuff. I don't think it's very genuine what you're doing.
I
think this is something that appeals to your audience.
Silly. No.
He said, I don't think it's very genuine what you're doing. Talking to Rogan. Look, that strikes me as psychological projection 101. You know, that sounds like a guy with a guilty conscience who feels that way about himself, and now he's saying it about Rogan. And that's a low fucking blow, man. That's a low blow. That's what you guys always hear me talk about. The last thing I ever go after is somebody's intentions. I default to assuming that people mean what they say until there's, like, really convincing evidence proving otherwise. I just assume everybody's an honest actor and a good actor unless there's overwhelming evidence to the contrary. You know, like with our politicians, look, they're bought off through campaign contributions and they raise, like, millions and millions of dollars from various lobbyists and billionaires and corporations. So I'm all for questioning the intentions in that respect. But for most, you know, regular people or commentators or media folks, like, I just assume good intent until proven otherwise. I assume they're genuine until proven otherwise. And Steven Crowder is saying to Joe Rogan, of all people, I don't think what you're doing is genuine. That is astonishing. Because, look, the only reason why Rogan, like him or hate him, the only reason he's gotten to the place where he is now is because he's authentic, flaws and all. And Crowder's like, you know, this isn't authentic.
No, it's not. You started on with traffic fatalities, and I thought you were wrong.
I didn't start on with traffic fatalities. You said, what issue would you drop and not talk about? And this is exactly why.
Right,
because
when we
these are
talked
the
about
conversations that always
marijuana,
occur.
that was one of the things that you
These
said
are the
was traffic
conversations that always
fatalities,
occur.
wasn't it?
And there's no productive conversation that comes from it.
Oh, sure there is.
No.
For people who are listening to this is extremely productive because they understand how someone with blinders can ignore the evidence and figure out some way where they're being wronged intellectually.
Like someone like blinders.
Someone will say that, oh, you should be in some sort of a debate. You've never been in a debate. You don't know what fucking debates I've been in. You know what conversations I've been in with people.
Televised, right, Joe?
You don't know. You don't know what conversations I've had.
I'm calling you on your bullshit.
Wait, conversations that I've had? You're saying I've never had a conversation with
other people who agree with you. And you bully people.
Steven Crowder, I'm not bullying people. We're having fun. Why is this bullying?
It's bullying because there are 2 people who hold one opinion, ask me on something that I don't care about, follow up 3, 4 questions to go into an area.
So the fuck what, man? So what? If I go on Rogan's show and Rogan and Jamie disagree with me, okay, let's hash it out. And maybe I'm right and maybe I'm wrong, but let's hash it out. And then whatever happens, happens. I'm not going to sit there and whine and bitch and moan and cry. Oh, you're bullying me. Have you ever been in a true debate? Oh, this isn't fair. Why'd you ask so many follow-up questions? I mean, this is just, it's intellectual bitchery is what it is. God damn it.
Where you 2 are very specifically passionate, and I said, I don't want to talk about it.
You don't want to talk about it because you're wrong.
No, I don't want to talk because I don't care.
Because he keeps showing
you wrong. If states want to legalize it, that's fine. But it is a valid issue when people of Colorado are looking at this now, and there are people in Colorado who might vote differently on the marijuana issue because of how it's perceived or because of the information at hand, and I believe that people in Colorado should be able to vote. They voted for pot, but if they want to vote the other way, in states they have the right to do that.
Who's arguing against that?
Well, that was my...
I am. I am. It should be legal at the federal level. And you know what? Let's legalize it through a direct ballot initiative. Let's legalize it through direct democracy. In the next presidential election, let's let the American people vote on whether or not they think weed should be legal recreationally for the entire country. And you know what? Not only are we going to win, we're going to win in a blowout. It would be above 55%. I mean, some polls, the new polls have it at like 70% support. It would get at least 55% in a election nationally. So let's do that. Do not leave it up to the states, because people's lives can be ruined in the red states where they would still keep it illegal. And I don't want those people to have their lives ruined, because I'm against authoritarianism, unlike Steven Crowder.
My point when we were talking about marijuana, my point was, when I worked at Fox, we were thrust onto panels where you had to talk about this because it was going on in Colorado.
I can't believe you called me a bully. That's such a left-wing tactic.
You are.
How dare you?
You are.
How dare you? How dare is it? How's it a bully?
You are.
You're a bully. Come on. I don't like how Rogan called that a left-wing tactic, though. That's silly.
What,
you do
facts?
That. No, there's no facts. You use all of this, I'll use these absolutes and call someone on it and then say, well, no, hold on, I'm just joking.
What absolutes did I use?
You said, well, okay, let me give you one that I can pull from my memory
bank.
Do. All of them were on alcohol.
That did fuck that up.
Yeah, you've done it several times.
But we're supposed to pull up
productive
statistics.
Discussion.
Wait. Notice something. Rogan got something wrong, and he was like, okay, yeah, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. That is way more definitive, concrete, and more of a total, well-rounded concession than anything Steven Crowder has done. But I actually would be interested to see, though, if what Joe was saying is somewhat correct. He said a very large percentage of the people. He reeled it in a little bit and pumped his brakes and changed it from all those people were also on alcohol to a very large percentage of them were on alcohol. I would be very curious to know what percentage of them were on alcohol.
I wouldn't be doing that.
But I know there's a large number. There's a large number. It's just Narconon or one of those companies. One of those. There was one. It was unlikely
it's 5
source.
o'clock?
Yeah. Well, you don't tell me you have to leave now.
My flight's at 6.
Turn this around. Well, you're gonna miss your flight no matter what. Now you're fucked. We're gonna be fine, dude.
No, I'm not gonna be fine. I'm not gonna make my flight back.
Yeah, you're gonna be fine. You live in America. You could be in Ethiopia right now, huddling in a fucking hut, trying to protect yourself from some rabid animal.
Yeah.
Don't be scared.
What?
You're gonna be fine. You got a little defensive. I thought we were friends.
No, you didn't.
It did. That's why I wanted to have you on here.
Listen.
I thought we were going to have some fun.
We were having fun, and then toward the end of the conversation, you asked me what issue do you not care about. I don't really care about the pot issue, which I thought I cared about when I was 21. You said you wouldn't defend issues when you were 7 years ago, right? All of your cells. When I was 21, I was probably a lot harsher on pot than I am today. I thought it was worse. I grew up around it. I had negative experiences. Then I realized that was anecdotal. I don't really care much anymore about it. I think states should be able to do what they want to do. Then 3, 4, 5 follow-up questions, so we could get to a point into this debate where the show...
Again, because you're wrong. Because you were wrong on a lot of it. That's why. So take it like a man.
It was now going on 2-3 hours long, and I've missed my flight.
Well, what you were trying to say was that people...
That face he did. Come on, man.
That are pro-marijuana ignore the negative consequences of marijuana, and I asked you what those were.
Right.
And you said traffic fatalities.
One of them.
And then we tried to find out if that's true, and we found out it's not.
We didn't find out that it's not true. You made an argument that it's not true, but we didn't definitively find out that it's not true.
A lot of statistics.
Well, it's very easy to do that when you ignore opposing statistics.
No, let's find the opposing
and make false
statistics.
claims about them.
Let's have Jamie find
Joe,
opposing
I don't have another
statistics.
hour. I've missed my flight. I don't have another hour to get into the pot issue.
You definitely have plenty of time, man. You're not going to get your flight. You got a lot of time. This is an interesting argument.
Right.
It's an interesting argument because it shows what happens when people not necessarily disagree, but getting into a position where one person wants to have the upper hand. You keep jockeying back and forth. We're trying to figure out who's going to wind up on the top of the heap.
No, there's no jockeying back and forth. No.
I think that is what's happening. I think Steven Crowder knows he's mostly wrong, and he's just trying to save face.
You're the one jockeying back and forth.
Oh, sweetie. You know that's not true.
Come on, that's a bully thing.
Honey.
Come on, that's a bully thing.
If that's a bully thing, then we have a real problem in this country.
Pussy, dumb fuck, honey.
That might be dumb fuck, might be bullying.
Yeah.
Sweetie is not bullying.
Which you've done.
Come on, I did it as a joke because I thought we were friends.
You don't think we talk every now and then. I do.
I like you.
I like you too, but I knew...
You don't think we're friends? You brought me a pipe. You gave me a pipe.
I did give you a pipe.
You've been on my podcast twice.
I know.
How dare you?
I'm guessing probably not invited back.
You're a goddamn bully. I'll invite you back.
By the way, Joe would have been much better off if he didn't remain somewhat close friends with Steven Crowder. I mean, I think he still likes him to this day, but I don't know how this instance didn't sour Rogan on Crowder. I really don't. Because all the red flags are there, all the signs are there that this isn't really somebody who you want to snuggle up with and be even somewhat close with. But look, he's a grown man. He can make whatever decisions he wants. I mean, it's wild, right? Like, I have friends of all different ideologies and belief systems and political stances, but I do not have, like, the really extreme differences that Rogan has amongst his friends. You know, like, he's friends with me, and he's friends with, like, Ben Shapiro. It's like, Joe, you do realize that we disagree on, like, literally 100% of things, right? Maybe not 100%. Maybe, like, 93.5% of things. And, I mean, on the one hand, you could say, hey, that's credit to him, but it does make for an interesting situation where, like, when Rogan has a podcast with me, he ends up agreeing with, like, I don't know, 85, 90% of the things that I say in the podcast, and, you know, it's very smooth and good conversation, and a lot of ground gets covered. But then he'll have on Shapiro, and he'll agree with him on, like, 85 or 90% of his stuff. And it's like, that's... I don't know how he manages to do that. I don't understand that. But there were a lot of red flags here with Steven Crowder, and Rogan made the interesting choice of continuing to be somewhat close to them. I won't say... I don't know how close, so it's almost unfair of me to say that, but he still had him on the podcast a number of times, I think, since this incident. So there's that.
Serious?
Here's the truth.
Are you upset more than me? Who's more upset
listen, when you say you're defensive and you have somebody else to bring up sources, let's be
I'll look up anything you want me to.
No, I don't want you to look up anything you want me to.
Jamie will be... Let me tell you something. If Jamie...
So Jamie's like, look, you tell me, like, what your sources are, and I'll look up the things that make your case. And Crowder's like, I don't even want you to do that. Which shows what? He probably doesn't have solid sources for a lot of the stuff he's saying.
He found something that shows me I'm wrong, and he does all the time. He pulls it up.
Well, Not Gay Jared knows it is a standing policy. On our show, we do it differently. And that's why I invited you on the show.
How do you do it differently?
We do it differently. Okay, if Christopher Titus comes on the show, if Sally Cohn comes on the show, if you come on the show, and you say, I want to talk about pot in the show. If you say that and you say, I disagree with you. I say, okay, Not Gay Jared, not a word, and you don't bring up any sources. This is going to be
there's a difference between you and me. I'd let him talk. I'd be like, you think I would ask
No, Jared
him.
talks all the time, but I don't think it's fair.
Why not? I would talk to him too. He's a human being.
I don't think 2-on-1 in an argument is fair.
It's not 2-on-1.
Yeah, it is.
You know it's not. If he disagrees with me and you disagree with me together, we can go back and forth all together.
And I don't know why he's just defaulting to assuming it would be an argument. Like, there are things that I disagree with Joe on where even if I bring that thing up, it's not necessarily going to be an argument. Because if somebody brings up some sort of data or study on it, you know, one person or the other person could be like, oh, okay, all right, got it. Interesting. I didn't think of it like that, you know? He's, like, making it so that's not possible with the way that he functions. And that says a lot about being, you know, a partisan hack and a tribal political guy, standard conservative Republican.
I don't care. I don't mind if there's 3 people. Get another friend that hates pot. Bring him in.
I don't hate pot.
Well, I mean, just
again,
I'm
there
saying,
you go,
like,
right
find
there,
someone
right
who does.
What absolutes?
No,
There's
another
a total
friend. Not you.
hold on a second. Before
Another
you said,
friend who hates pot.
I said mischaracterizations and absolutes. There, I don't hate pot.
I'm not saying you do. I'm saying get a friend who hates pot. Bring him in as well.
Get another friend who hates pot.
Get another friend.
What does another mean?
Get another friend who also hates pot.
Have another. Have Jamie look up another.
I should have used the word also.
No, because the implication there is another, meaning you hate pot.
No, I don't
If I said, Joe, get another person who endorsed Bernie Sanders, and then
I do. I think he hates pot. I don't know why he doesn't just own that. Like, just own it. Like, it's pretty obvious that you do. Just be like, yeah, I do hate it. Now he's getting all sensitive about that. He's fucking gaslighting. Like, that's what this is. This is, like, classic textbook gaslighting.
Had an egg on his face.
I think
it would imply that you did.
Arguments. I think you hate
I
losing
gave you the
arguments.
argument, and you continued for another hour, Joe.
You didn't really. You gave it to me with a caveat, and that caveat is that I'm a bully, and that Jamie pulls up statistics that only benefit my ideas.
On that argument. You are.
How is it a bully when 2 people are talking? How's it bullying?
It's not 2 people talking, though. You don't have a conversation with 2 people talking. You have a failsafe. You have other people who agree with you. You have an audience who agrees with you. I'm on your program.
I'm not talking to my audience, man. Just two people talking.
Let me be clear.
Okay.
I don't hate pot.
Okay.
I couldn't care less if you want to smoke pot, if states want to legalize pot.
Okay.
I couldn't care less about that. Now,
okay.
Pot is not a substance without consequence. That's all. And some of those consequences can be damage to the developing brain. When they're 25, we had a psychiatrist on talk about it, and people called her a dumb bitch who, doesn't weed cures cancer. There have been statistics and reports on fatalities increasing regarding marijuana. You may not accept them, and maybe you're right on those sources. Maybe your sources are more valid than my sources. I'll grant you that.
Correct.
So my issue is when people are dishonest and only present one side of the issue. I just presented several sides, and on my show on a regular basis, listen, if you want to smoke pot, I couldn't care less. Go ahead and smoke pot. And I think that the people who have tried to make you think, reefer madness and wacky tobacco, I think that's overblown. But I also think there are some issues that people who simply want to justify it, sometimes a habit, which could be negative to some people, not all, overlook completely one side of the issue. And there's an entire side of the medical community who disagree.
I don't think that part is unfair. I actually think it is fair. There is a thing that happens where if people like pot, they like weed, they can just cherry pick all of the things that are positive, real or perceived or exaggerated, and ignore any of the negative things for, some percentage of the population, for some people who pot doesn't mesh well with. And that exists. That's real. The problem with what Stephen is saying, though, is that he uses the negative things to then justify authoritarian policies. And it's his old position was authoritarian. His position of just ban it federally and basically you're an idiot if you do it and you're lazy and all the stereotypes are true, right? But even his new position is authoritarian. It's just a lesser degree of authoritarianism. Because the new position is leave it up to the states. Okay, well, if you leave it up to the states, over 20 of them are going to keep it illegal. Probably over 25 of them are going to keep it illegal. And so in those 25 states, if you happen to smoke weed and get caught or sell it and get caught, your life can be ruined as a result of it, even though, you're an adult making free decisions and not hurting anybody else. So I actually have no problem with the dialogue and the discourse around what are the positives and what are the negatives when it comes to weed. Are there certain claims that are exaggerated, et cetera, et cetera? I have no problem with that conversation at all. The reason why it's nefarious when Steven Crowder has this conversation, though, is because, again, I'm sure he more often harps away on the negative things, and the reason he's doing that is to try to push the old-school conservative Republican argument of, it needs to remain illegal at the federal level. And, oh, sure, if the states want to legalize it, they can legalize it. But if then you're dooming, tens of thousands or millions of people to prison from the red states because they enjoy weed, well, that's their problem. So it's nefarious because of how he uses the conversation and how he crafts the narrative. If he was just having an open, honest dialogue and discourse around things that are potentially negative and positive about it, but his position was, hey, it should still be legal at the federal level, then I'd be totally fine with him talking about these things. But that's not how he uses it, and we all know that's not how he's using it.
Agrees with you. And I don't know that I agree with them or disagree with them yet.
Wait a minute, the medical community?
There is an entire side to the medical community who would disagree with your position. And I don't...
Yeah, but I think it's a shrinking percentage of the medical community. And again, the medical community, let's say they for argument's sake, I don't know if this is true, but let's say there's a consensus in the medical community that alcohol is seriously dangerous. Even if we allow for that fact in the discussion, I still don't think that means you should ban it at the federal level. People should be able to recreationally drink, even if it is a net negative. So that's not relevant to the political part of the conversation. And Steven Crowder is a political guy. And that's why he effectively is a propagandist. So anyway.
No, that you think marijuana is a benign substance.
I don't think it's benign. To developing brains, we already discussed that.
Okay, good example. Developing brains.
Well, I don't think alcohol is as well.
I would agree. I think a lot of kids who listen to this show, I know you're not responsible. It's you should be 18 in Canada. You should be 16 years old to drive a car. You're not telling kids to go and smoke up. But I think a lot of people who are listening, you have many young listeners who are in that developmental stage, certainly under the age of 25, who only hear the positive virtues extolled of marijuana. Sometimes they're not entirely honest. Sometimes they're not entirely accurate, I should say. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing.
Necessarily accurate, how so?
What
example, positive things?
Let me ask you this: have you ever on your program
accurate?
talked about how harmful marijuana could be to the developing brain under 25?
Yeah, we have many times.
Have you, in a way that you've conceded that's valid?
No, we've said that I don't think you should do anything. I don't think any 15-year-old should do anything to their brain because we don't know what the fuck happens to your brain when you give a kid alcohol. I did it. I'm sure you probably did it too. When did you drink first? How old were you?
Probably 15. Well, first beer, probably.
I think
really
I was 14 the first time I got drunk with my friends. I mean, it's terrible. It's not good for you. It's not smart. It's definitely not smart. And I know, and you know, and I'm sure we all know someone who did get completely overindulgent in marijuana and became one of those wake and bake people that ruined their life.
Sure.
And I think people can do that.
Now I think Joe's even being a little too harsh on some people. Like, yeah, there are some wake and bake people who quote unquote ruin their life, but there's plenty who didn't. So, you know, that's not necessarily bad. I would agree on the point though that when you're too young, yeah, like if you're 13 and you're smoking weed, like that's just not a great idea. It's just not. But like, you know, look, for me, my line, 16 and up is the line that makes sense to me. I think everything should be legal from 16 and up. Joining the military, you know, buying lotto tickets, cigarettes, alcohol, that's my line. But look, it's arbitrary. But anybody's line is going to be arbitrary. I just think when you're 16, you've gone, you know, a significant chunk of the population has gone through enough puberty to be able to make those decisions. But I agree, if you're too young, you probably shouldn't do those things. But look, if you're an adult, if you're some 25-year-old person and you're waking and baking and you're taking care of your business, I see no problem with that at all.
With almost any substance, anything that's psychoactive, at least. I think people do that with cigarettes, where they need that fucking cigarette more than they need anything. I think a lot of AA people do that with cigarettes and alcohol. They replace their weird addiction to alcohol to something that's not as bad for them. I think there's a lot of things for the developing mind, particularly for the developing mind, that we have available to us all the time that are really dangerous. You know, I had Henry Rollins on here. He was talking about when he was a little kid. He was like 5-year-old. They put him on Ritalin. Yeah. One time he was 5. I think that's fucking horrible. I think psych meds for little kids that don't necessarily need them, but maybe they're just a little too energetic. I think all that.
Look, I think that might be true. But I also think when it comes to like actual medicine, like psychiatric medicine, I think in many instances it makes sense. Like, if there's an expert and the kid is diagnosed with something and they need something to tweak their behavior and their ability to focus, et cetera, I think that's fine. Again, look, I'm not an expert on that point. It's possible that Joe is right, because this is a very common opinion you hear from a lot of people on Ritalin or, you know, other psychological drugs, other medicines that get, you know, prescribed by like psychiatrists or whatever. It's possible that they're overprescribed and that has like a negative, that has negative implications for society. But I also think it's possible that a lot of kids need those things, and that, you know, in a previous generation, if we had the ability to have these medications for them, then maybe that generation would have fared better. Like, I don't think that's a crazy thing to say, but I think that position that I just espoused is actually not common in modern discourse. I think most people actually agree with Joe there completely. Like, yeah, all these things are overprescribed and, you know, that's really bad. And look, maybe they're overprescribed, but maybe a significant chunk of the people who are prescribed it do kind of need it. You know, like, I know people, I mean, this is a slightly different thing, but I know people who would tell you that like SSRIs saved their life, you know, and they wish they were on them sooner. And so, you know, just the whole like, oh, this is overprescribed. Yeah, maybe, but also maybe not. And I don't agree with like the wholesale, you know, anti-medication stance that is very common in today's discourse.
Shit's horrible. So whether it's marijuana or alcohol or Quaaludes or whatever you want to give a 15-year-old kid that's got a developing mind, I think there's massive consequences, and I don't think you can really calculate those consequences. That's my position.
I think you can calculate those consequences.
Well, I think you can, but I mean, you would have to fuck up a lot of kids in order to really prove the statistical viability of what damage is being done to kids and how much would cause the damage.
Are you talking about Ritalin now?
I'm talking about Quaaludes, alcohol, marijuana, heroin,
meth.
Quaaludes
in 2017?
Wow, Quaaludes, Oxys. Let's go with Oxycontins. I'm just talking about downers. I'm talking about anything where it's a depressant or a stimulant. There's a significant amount of effects across the board.
Oxys are barbiturate, by the way. I think it's just classified as a narcotic. It's not like a downer, like a benzodiazepine or something.
Aren't opiates considered a downer?
I don't think they're officially considered barbiturates.
Well, is it a depressant? Alcohol's a depressant, right?
Alcohol's a central nervous system depressant. Right. But I know something like a Quaalude or I actually knew a powerlifter where the only drug he could, it was a prescription, people don't remember this, the date rape drug was a prescribed drug. A guy named Chad.
One of the date rape drugs.
Well, whatever the most common date rape drug. I don't know if it's actually Rufalin or whatever it's called. But most commonly used, or the most effective date rape drug.
I know what you're thinking about, but I can't. It's not coming to me. I know the drug, but it's a weird one where it's
a roofie, right?
Helps bodybuilders sleep.
Well, this guy was a powerlifter.
Yeah. Powerlifters do it too because it actually infers more
growth hormone.
Well, not just growth hormone, but recovery.
Is it GABA? Something GABA?
Every time because they have like deep sleep. What is it called?
But you know what I'm talking about.
What is it?
It's used as a date rape drug.
Or hypnol. That's not what you're talking about.
Not that's roofies. No. That's roofies. There's another thing. I know what you're talking about.
But it's used as a date rape drug.
Yes.
And there was a guy who actually,
Ketamine? I don't know.
Thing he could sleep on, and, and then it became so they don't prescribe it anymore. He had insomnia. He had like an 1100 squat. Was not quite world record, but close to it. And lived out in Reno, Nevada. And that was the only way he could sleep. When he wasn't able to get it anymore, his lifts.
Did you find it?
Fell.
Progestrix?
No, no. God damn it! It's got like a real common name. I'll text my buddy because he had an overdose of it. God. But he was like 18. Oh God, hold on a second.
I will say though, like okay. The same mindset that Rogan takes with weed, I wish people would take with other substances. Because there are, like, even all of the pharmaceutical substances, the ones that have psychoactive effects, there are a lot of people who have positive impacts as a result of them. But again, I feel like modern discourse is very, negative on any sort of pharmaceutical psychoactive substances, but it's very positive towards like weed and psychedelics. It's a very weird thing that happens. Dr. Carl Hart actually talks about this. Like, there are people, like, because of our crackdown on opiates and opioids, for example, and that was viewed as, oh my God, we need to do this. It was almost like a political consensus that we had to do it. Well, what happened is people moved to heroin on the black market because they needed their fix, they needed their substance, and that was tainted with fentanyl, and a lot of people ended up overdosing. In fact, more people have been overdosing since we cracked down on the pain pills. So the thing that was supposed to be the solution actually led to more of the problem. Instead of people being objective and rational about this and looking at the situation and saying, you know what? Actually, a lot of people need these pills. There are a lot of chronic pain patients in today's day and age that cannot get the pain pills that they need. And so they are risking their lives by going to the black market. And so you never hear that side of the story. You only hear about, the deaths of despair and the opioid crisis and the overdoses and the addiction. You never hear about that side of the story. So I feel like in the same way that there was originally a time of like, oh my God, reefer madness, this drug is terrible, and look at all the negative things it does. You hear that a lot now about like pharmaceutical substances that might be psychoactive to one extent or another. Whether they're SSRIs or, Xanax, benzos, pain pills like opioids or opiates. So I just wish Rogan would take the same line with those drugs as he does with marijuana. Like, hey, hold on one second here. Let's look at the positives. So I think it's important to have a conversation about both the positives and the negatives, but we should have, federal drug guidelines that are sane and rational and lean way more towards the side of freedom than they do towards authoritarianism.
Can you talk, please, for a moment while I pull
this
up?
You want me to talk?
GHB.
I don't know what you want to talk about.
GHB, thank you. That's it.
I'm pissed. I missed my flight. I have a show to do tomorrow. And
where are you going?
I have to go back. I have a show tomorrow.
A TV show or radio? Oh, your
my
show
to do. So there's no way we're going to get it done.
Us making up is going to be so good for your show and my show, too.
No, it's not. The entire commentary from this is going to be, oh my God, what a moron. He thinks weed doesn't cure cancer.
No, man. We're gonna
I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
Yeah, but don't worry about it. We're gonna get through this and get through it in a way that makes sense. Look, I definitely get weird with these conversations, and I assume everybody can get, fake hostile with me. So if I call it, come on, bitch, I talk to you like that, I don't mean it in a negative. I do it like I would do it if you were Brian Callen, and he would start laughing along.
Yeah.
But you live in Michigan, you get a little sensitive.
On, no. When you go, that's adorable. Let's not.
That is adorable.
Hold on a second. When you say that, that's not meant to. And we were joking about other topics, but on that, you lasered in, got serious. You're wrong. Let's stay on this. Pound it in. That's just. It's just. I don't understand the purpose to it.
Man up, bitch.
Have some fun.
So that's fun.
It's a little bit fun.
So you like doing that? You like having someone in, disagreeing with them, and going to town.
Getting a little silly. Like I think you might have got a little silly. I like to have a little fun.
Got a little silly? Did I bring up the pot issue? I said it's the issue I care about the least.
Come on, man, let's get away from that. We're free. We're out of the woods. Right. We're back on the road. We're doing good. You just want to grab the wheel and go fucking crazy again. Turn towards the trees. Don't do it. Resist.
Nitro hibiscus cold brew tea.
All right.